Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy and I create videos on absolutely everything coloured pencil related. Today's video I'm going to be recapping some of my favourite and some of my worst pieces from 2018. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video purely because I have created so many pieces this year. So let's jump straight into our first month, which is January. So January started off the year with the leopard eye tutorial and leopard eye drawing, which I have just released as a real-time video to YouTube, so I'll link that up above if you want to go and check that out. But that's how the year started. This was a piece that I created for my membership site. So this was the piece that sort of kicked it all off. This was a thing that I offered as a free tutorial as well, so that people could sort of get a taster of my teaching style and then hopefully sign up. So this was the piece that I created for that. And then I went on to do a rose study. So I moved away from animals. I thought, let's be a little bit adventurous and let's try something botanical. So I don't know what I was thinking with this rose, if I'm honest, because most people follow me for my animal work, but I thought, well, let's try and diversify and sort of appeal to a few more people by incorporating a few botanical works. So I completed this rose study, but if I'm honest, I wasn't entirely happy with this, and a comment that I got from my mother actually kind of deterred me away from doing more botanical work, and that was the fact that she said that it looked hairy. And I was analysing it and I was like, yeah, you're right, this does actually look hairy. So that kind of made me not want to do botanical work, because I thought, well, I'm so used to drawing fur that I'm actually drawing my botanicals furry. So yeah, this piece was a little bit experimental and one that I wasn't too happy with. A lot of people loved the final outcome, but it wasn't one that I myself am overly proud of. But I included it in January's artwork recap because those were the only two that I actually completed in January. So let's turn our attention to February. I created some really lovely pieces in February that I am really proud of, and I think are some of my best pieces so far this year. And the first one was the flamingo. So this was a little bit of a challenge because it's kind of a really interesting composition. It's not a generic like head up flamingo pointing, you know, that kind of thing. It was the flamingo buried in its feathers. And I decided to choose this one primarily because I wanted to enter it into the UK Coloured Pencil Society competition and exhibition. They hold an annual competition where you submit your artworks and then they're selected and then they're sent off for exhibition and then a winner's chosen, all of that stuff. So you had to use your own photograph, and the only good photograph I had was this flamingo. So that's where this piece came from, and that's kind of why I decided to do this piece. Again, this isn't one of my favourite pieces ever. I could have done a whole lot better on this. The technique and everything, the way it was executed was a little bit sloppy. I was a little bit rushed for time. So I'm proud of this piece, but I could have done a whole lot better with this. So the next one I completed was the kestrel. Now this is one that I am proud of, and the main reason I'm proud of this one is because I used a different technique. Usually I burnish and blend with the coloured pencils or a white pencil, but a lot of my students were asking me to create a tutorial where I blend with a solvent, so I decided to use this kestrel as a case study for that. So this kestrel was blended with Zest-It solvent, and I really love the outcome of this kestrel. I love the smoothness of the feathers, and the addition of that solvent meant I could get all of those really fine details without having to worry about losing the ability to layer through the tooth of the paper. I love this kestrel. It didn't sort of do too well on social media, but I personally love this piece. It was a good learning curve for myself. I learned a lot about the layering abilities and a lot more of the properties of the solvent blender. So I educated myself as well as my students with this piece. So this is one that this one actually stuck in my mind. This was when February came up. This was I was like, kestrel, that's what I did in February. I remember that one. The next piece on my list is, I don't know, I think it's in my top 5 of my favourites this year, and that is the wolf. I love this piece so much, and this one did extremely well social media wise. YouTube wise, you guys have given it so many views on YouTube, and I'm so proud of this piece. And that is that wolf. There's something about this one that I love. The reference, okay, it's not really much of like an original composition or anything like that. The reference is just taken from Pixabay, but the reference really inspired me when I saw this. The lighting on the wolf, the sort of oranges mixed with those grey and blue tones. Just everything about this was really, really fun to draw and fun to replicate. So this piece is in my top 5 this year. I'm not quite sure where it sits on that 1 to 5, but it's definitely in that top 5. I just loved drawing this. I loved creating the tutorial of this, and yeah, that's basically all I have to say about that wolf. So let's move on to March, and in March I created 2 main pieces that I want to mention, and that is my first sort of kitty cat eye study, which is that orange cat with the green eyes. Love this one. This is what really kind of fueled my focus towards eye studies this year. I know I did the leopard eye study, but it was this one that I was like, yes, I love eye studies. That's what I really, really love doing. So that was sort of a light flipper-honor moment, I don't know what you call it, an inspiration moment for me. I was like, yes, I love eye studies, I want to continue doing these. So this sort of set the tone for 2018's eye study route. Next up was the red squirrel. One of my favourites, not my top 5, but it is a piece that I am really proud of, mainly because I managed to capture that little squirrely goodness of the hands, and I also managed to replicate that sort of mossy area that it's sitting on, and I just love the way that I actually managed to execute this one. This piece did come with a few problems. I did have a few issues with the tail and getting it looking really nice and fluffy, and the colouring kind of went a little bit muddy in places, but I managed to overcome it, and I think the overall outcome of this piece was really, really good. So next up is April, and again there's 2 pieces that I want to mention from April. The first being the puffin. This piece was so lovely to draw. I used a reference photo from Julie Hunt, and as soon as she mentioned that she had puffins and that I could use one of her photos, I was absolutely ecstatic, because I've wanted to draw a puffin for a long time, but I couldn't find a reference that I really, really liked. So when she sent this over, I was like, yes, let's draw this. And the challenge of the puffin itself, the feathers, the really, really slick black feathers, was really great to replicate. And then of course it had the stone on the bottom. So I wasn't too keen on the those sort of textural elements within my pieces, but I managed to overcome that fear and create a really good result on the stones actually. And this wasn't a goal that I actually set to do within 2018, but it's one that I sort of made at this point, and that was to sort of create more unusual textures like the stones, like the moss in the red squirrel, and incorporate that into my drawings. So that's when that kind of unusual texture goal sort of manifested there. The second piece in April is my tiger piece, which is featured as my social media icons and everything from that point throughout the rest of 2018. I am actually really proud of this piece. Again, this was one that I created using a different blending and burnishing method. I used that solvent once more. This was sort of a vaster look at using a solvent, because I applied the solvent and used it in a completely different way to what I did with the Kestrel. So this was one for my students primarily, just a recap of using solvent. I wanted to just make sure that I was using different mediums and teaching different methods rather than just teaching the blending and burnishing method that I usually use. So this piece was born out of the want to do that for my students, and I created a really nice piece that I am happy with. I could have done a whole lot better. I could have done several different things differently to really make it incredible, but I'm pleased with what I managed to achieve with this piece. Next up is May, and this time of the year is when I really started to ramp up my amount of drawings per month. I don't know, maybe I was being a little bit too hard on myself and thinking that I hadn't got too many pieces out and done, and this is when I decided that I really needed to pull my socks up and start to just crank out the pieces. So the next couple of months are when I got out the most drawings, and it's also the time of this year that I actually experienced some really negative feelings. Not going too much into detail about it, but I wasn't in a good place mentally, and yeah, I don't know whether my artwork kind of helped me to overcome that, but over the next few months I just created a whole load of artwork, and then at the end of it I was like changed. It was like a butterfly metamorphosis kind of thing, I don't know, but yeah. First one in May was the horse. This isn't one of my best drawings at all. I don't know what I was thinking with this horse. I don't know why I chose this colour or why I chose this particular picture. I just don't know what I was thinking with this. I'm really not proud of it, but I thought I would mention it in this recap because it's good to mention the things that you aren't particularly proud of, and this was the main one that I wasn't particularly proud of this year. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on the horse, so let's skip right onto the kingfisher. And this was my first piece for the Animal Artists Collective, and I really wanted to make sure that I did a really fantastic job for this. And again, I used a reference photo from Julie Hunt. She was kind enough to let me use another of her pictures. And this again features some of that unusual texture. You've got the bark and the moss, and the unusual colours on the kingfisher as well. So you've got the bright oranges and the blues. Really, really proud of this piece. It's in my top 5 for this year. There's not really too much that I can say about it without saying that I absolutely bloody love it. I've got 2 more pieces for May. I've got the 3 colour cat eye, which I did in a in a couple of live streams on YouTube as a little type of challenge type thing, and I've also got a dog eye study. Neither of them I am particularly like, oh my god, wow, that's my best piece ever. But I was particularly proud of the 3 colour cat eye study because I used 3 colours for that. I used 3 colours and a white pencil, and I am really proud with the results of that because that's just 3 pencils there, and I managed to create something really, really significant. And yeah, I'm really proud of that, and that I actually managed to pull through with that challenge, because if you watch the live streams, man was it a challenge at the beginning, but I pulled through and created something really, really nice. In the month of June, I created 3 key pieces, one of those being the owl eye study, which went along with the dog eye study and the cat eye study, as well as like a 3-part series for my students. And that was the first time I actually tackled any kind of bird eye in detail like that, and the feathers and everything I thought were going to be really difficult to replicate, but it ended up being completely different to my expectations. It was really therapeutic to actually render that one, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Next up is the lion cub. This is probably my favourite from June, and the composition on this isn't wonderful. I could have done a whole better job at choosing a different composition and sort of making it look better on the paper, and just sort of blending in a little bit more neck maybe, I don't know, but I could have done a whole better job at the composition on this one. But I'm pleased with the actual rendering of it, so the method in which I worked, the techniques and everything that I used, I'm really pleased with that aspect of it. I think it was technically really good, it just wasn't good in the sort of composition way, but this is one that I really like. The eyes especially, again, my love of eye studies, as you could see from some of my previous pieces of the dog eye and the owl eyes were becoming my thing. Next for June was the butterfly. This one, oh my lord, this was a complete challenge. The butterfly itself wasn't too difficult, but it was the flowers. I was tackling those botanicals again, and I was so scared that I was going to make them look furry or make them look hairy, that I just didn't really enjoy this flower, this like, what's it, budula or however you say it. It wasn't the best one to choose because one, it had really tiny flowers and that was really difficult to draw out, and two, it was really tedious to go through and draw all of the negative space around the flowers, so all of that dark space, and then actually go back through and fill in all the flowers. It was a tedious piece to complete, but the final outcome of it I'm actually really pleased with because it works well together, especially because of the colour choices. The orange of the butterfly and the purple of the flowers, bam, works really good together. So I was really happy with this piece, even though it was especially tedious to complete. Now it's time for July, and this is the second month of the year with the most pieces. I created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I finished 5 pieces, but I started 6 pieces. One of them is still not finished. But the main ones which I am really proud of are the Sun Conyers. This is one of my top 5. The Sun Conure piece with the Arteza Expert coloured pencils. Wasn't expecting it to come out good at all, but it astonished me. I am really proud of this piece. I wish that I had the confidence to pop it in a frame and put it on my wall, but I'm just not sure if it's gonna fade. I'm really proud of this piece. I think it is the best piece that I have completed this year. I think it's gonna go at the number 1 of my top 5 of pieces created this year. Other pieces I've created this year, what have I got down here? I've got the blue tit, the badger, tabby eyes, and the hummingbird. The hummingbird is one worth mentioning because I am pleased with that one. That's one that I completed in a live stream. I started the hummingbird on a different type of paper. It wasn't working for me. I was getting really frustrated with it, and then I switched to my usual paper and the piece transformed. I enjoyed it, and I created a really colourful, sort of almost magical little hummingbird there, and I'm really pleased with that one. That's one that I actually sold like before it was even finished. That was my first piece that I had sold before I completed it, and I was like, wow. I was really pleased with myself. I was like, that's never happened to me before. This piece must be something special. So that one will always stick in my mind as being a really good piece and a really good point in the year for me. So August has the most pieces here. I created 6 pieces and actually finished 6 pieces as well. So those were the python, the snake. There isn't any video evidence of that one because I started to create it as a tutorial and realised it was too difficult. I was getting frustrated with myself. I didn't quite know how to tutorialise it and say what I was thinking when my mind was such a mess. So there's no actual video evidence of that one, but that piece is up on my wall over there. I'm really proud of that it has actually made the wall. So I'm pretty pleased with that piece. It was my first reptile, and it sort of spurred my sort of imagination to create some more interesting sort of reptilian pieces. So that's when I created the damselfly piece from a photo from my good friend Holly, and also then decided I'm going to create something on something slimy. So that's when I did the salamander piece. Created something completely different, completely new textures, and I also used it as a time to sort of experiment with techniques and ways to create those textures so that I could create tutorials for my students. So it was a really good time creatively, but the salamander, that is in my top 5 this year as well. Really pleased with that piece. I just love the contrast of that and everything about it. It's so good. The last 3 pieces in August were my shark, my nurse shark. I did a blue cat eye study, and I also did a horse eye study. And the horse eye study I am most proud of out of those pieces because it was a really in-depth look at horse eyes. They are a little bit different to like cat's eyes, dog's eyes, that kind of thing. So I'm pleased with that one, mainly because it was on such a small scale as well. It was, I think it was 3.5 by 3.5 inches. So it was a small scale artwork, and I managed to create and pack in so much detail. So I was really pleased with that piece. So for September, I created 2 pieces. I created the Pine Marten, which was another Animal Artists Collective video piece, which I am super proud of because I incorporated a huge amount of wood texture there, and that's not something that I would usually do. So I was like, let's push the boundaries, let's try something a little bit different and incorporate a little bit more of the creature's sort of habitat into the drawing. So that was really fun to do, and that sort of made me realise that maybe that's the thing that I should be doing and incorporating into not all of my pieces, but a few of my pieces, and incorporating habitats and just giving this subject a little bit more context rather than just leaving the background white and plain. Incorporate some more habitat and create a more visually interesting and striking piece by incorporating those textures. So sort of reaffirming what I thought way back in March, April time, and just sort of bringing it forward and sort of thinking, yes, this is what I need to do. So that's what I did with the pine marten, and then I created the piece that I'm not happy with at all. Everybody loves this, especially on social media, on Instagram. Everybody was like, I love this little thing, and this was the hedgehog. I'm really not pleased with this at all. I could have done a whole better job. I got so scared of drawing all of those little needles and spines that the drawing outcome of this, I could have done a whole lot better. And I'm going to be honest, hedgehog is not something that I'm going to draw again in the future, because I'm absolutely scared of having a piece turn out like this hedgehog piece, because I really don't like it. I think it is one of my worst pieces this year. Let's move on to October, and I created 3 pieces. I created 2 ice studies and a piece of a robin. The robin was primarily created for use on Christmas cards, which it did make it to Christmas cards. So that was that piece. Not really much to say about the robin, but yeah, that's just that. The next 2 pieces I am really proud of, and I think are my best ice studies this year. The first being the tiger ice study. This one I am in love with. I'm gonna order a frame up in the next couple days, and it's gonna go on my wall back there along with the other pieces that I am kind of like a little bit proud of. I'm just really pleased with the way that turned out. I didn't use any solvent or anything for this. I just used my normal blending and burnishing methods, and the piece actually turned out incredibly well. The contrast is on point. I used a few different techniques with a black pen and all that kind of jazz. So I was really pleased with this one, and I love it. The last piece for October was my crocodile eye study. This piece I was a little bit apprehensive to start at first, but this was the first tutorial that I created of a different subject matter for my students. So usually everything's been like furry or feathery. This was the first reptile study for my students, so that made me a little bit nervous, but I think the final outcome of this is stunning. Again, this was another small scale piece like the horse eye study. I realised that small scale eye studies were really fast to complete, and I really enjoyed them, so I carried on that theme with this crocodile eye study. November saw the completion of my final Animal Artist Collective piece of the year, and that was the polar bear, and this was the first piece ever that I have created that incorporated this amount of background. And I love the outcome of this, so much so that it is one of my 2019 goals to incorporate more backgrounds like I've done on the polar bear. And I think it really sets a tone, it gives him so much context, it gives him much more of a story, and it's so much better than if it would have been just a polar bear on a white background. I feel like the inclusion of the ice and his habitat completes this piece, and I absolutely love it. And again, this was one that sold as soon as I'd finished it, and I am so proud of that. It was also my first sale of an Animal Artist Collective piece, and I was actually able to donate to the charity of choice, so that was really a good moment for me. Other pieces in November were mainly just the Huevember pieces. Not going to go into too much of that because I've done a whole Huevember recap where I talk about that. But the final outcome of the 4 drawings there were ones that I'm actually pretty pleased with. So finally we get to December. Not much done in December, if I'm honest, because I was catching up with all the kinds of different things from throughout the year, obviously getting ready for Christmas and everything. But the main pieces that I completed were the Holly and Berries piece, which again is a botanical subject. So I started the year with botanicals and I ended the year with botanicals. I hadn't thought about that until now, so what a nice way to end the year. I'm really pleased with the Holly and Berry piece because they don't look furry, they don't look fluffy or hairy, they look nice and smooth and they look like they should, so I'm actually pretty pleased that I've managed to come from a hairy looking rose to a non-hairy holly and berry piece. The final piece in December was actually a commission, and one that isn't really there's not much video footage of it. There's live streams of it, but I haven't actually got any physical footage from my camera to show you guys. But this was a huge commission and also a huge challenge, this orangutan and gorilla commission, and I'm really pleased with the final outcome of this, and it was a really nice way to sort of round out the year. This is the final piece that I finished this year, and I'm really incredibly proud of it, and so is the owner, which is double bonus, so high fives all round. And that sort of concludes all of the pieces that I want to show you this year. There's been so many. That's pretty much it for this 2018 art recap. I've created so many drawings and I'm so immensely proud of myself. I actually counted them up and I have created 45 drawings finished in total, which is outstanding. I didn't even think that it would be that high a number, so I'm immensely proud of myself that I actually managed to do that. And in addition to those 45 completed, I've actually have 5 unfinished as well. So I have started 50 drawings this year. That's almost 1 per week. And I have finished 45. That is a really big achievement for me. And I am so proud of myself that I have managed to create that many drawings and just produce that amount of work. That is absolutely outstanding. I think it might be the most drawings that I have produced this year, and that is just drawings. That's not even all of the other stuff that I've created, because I've done watercolor paintings, I have done some pastel drawings, I've done a bunch of other stuff, so that's not even everything that I've created. So on top of the watercolors and everything, I've probably created about 75 pieces, so that's something to really be proud of, and I'm so proud of my progress throughout this year and just pleased with how far I've come, both business and personal wise as well as art wise as well. I can see a huge leap in my skill level from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, which I am really proud of. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed seeing my work throughout this year. And the reaction on social media and everything from you guys is just so great. I love reading all of your comments and seeing all of your reactions to my pieces, both the good and the bad, because there have been some bad reactions and I embrace those bad reactions because that also helps me grow. So yeah, basically I am just full of love right now. I'm so pleased with everything. Just everything is going good, and yeah. Can you tell? So that is pretty much it for the 2018 art recap. I was going to incorporate the 2019 goals, but that's going to be a separate video, so you'll have that to look forward to in the next couple days. But I really hope that you have enjoyed this little trip through memory lane of 2018 with me. Let me know, what are your favourite drawings? What would be your top 5 that I've created this year? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm always interested to know what you guys like compared to what I actually like, because it is always different. So let me know in the comments below what you actually loved seeing this year, and also what you didn't love seeing. Was the hedgehog your worst favourite as well? But that is pretty much it for this video. I have enjoyed sharing this year with you guys so much, and I'm so looking forward to sharing 2019 with you, continuing the YouTube journey and all of that jazz. So let's look forward to the year to come. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up with that button below. And if you're new around here and you're excited about 2019 too, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and tick that bell icon as well to be notified of all of my future videos as soon as they're released. I will be sticking to my same schedule of releasing a video every Friday and live streaming most Sundays, with a few new videos here and there as well throughout the week every now and then. So you have that to look forward to, and I can't wait to share the next year with you. So see you then.